While Israel's government has not yet confirmed its post-war plans for Gaza, the far-right settler movement has been clear about what it wants. Israeli ultra-nationalists are calling for the building of settlements in the Gaza Strip once the war is over with Hamas, the militant Islamist group that launched the terror attacks on Israel on October 7th. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has ruled out a resettlement, but several members of his government have joined the calls to begin building.
Airstrikes and operations on the ground as Israel tries to root out Hamas from Gaza. Death and destruction throughout the Strip. But here at a conference in Jerusalem, far-right Israeli settler organizations are making plans for the day after. Daniela Weiss is a settler and activist.
The aim of this assembly is to bring together the people who claim that we have to return to the Gaza Strip and establish Jewish communities right away in the Gush Katif area, in the city of Gaza itself, and all over the Strip. The Arabs will not stay in Gaza, not the Hamas, not the supporters of Hamas. And those who do not support Hamas don't want to stay anyway.
Those kinds of plans are not government policy. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said Israel does not intend to establish a permanent civilian presence in Gaza again. But a number of his ministers were at the conference calling for Israeli settlements in Gaza, including the National Security Minister. Today, everyone understands that retreat brings about war, and if we don't want another October 7th, we need to return home to Gaza and control the territory to encourage voluntary emigration of Palestinians. Mustafa Barghouti of the Palestinian National Initiative told the Al Jazeera news outlet that this is not a joke. These are the people who are making the policy in Israel, and they were calling for the complete ethnic cleansing of the people of Gaza. In 2005, Israel evacuated its settlements in Gaza, the largest of which was called Gush Katif, after a 38-year occupation. The evacuation was framed as a move to improve security, but Hamas started firing rockets into Israel soon afterwards. Building new settlements in Gaza doesn't have majority Israeli support. A recent poll found 44% in favor. But Netanyahu has not shut down his own minister's calls for a return. He's just said the plans are not realistic. Those calls have been condemned by Israel's allies, Germany and the U.S.
Some of this rhetoric and the language that was attributed to some of these ministers at this event, irresponsible, reckless, incendiary, I'd go so far as to say, and certainly doesn't comport with our strong policy statement, what we have made clear, that there can be no reduction in Gazan territory. What is it?
The fact that resettling Gaza is being discussed at all has raised fears that the issue has come out of the fringes and will gain legitimacy. Meanwhile, Daniela Weiss told DW she might not wait for permission. She wants to lead a group of settlers to start building in Gaza.
Aya Ibrahim filed this report. She joins us from Jerusalem. Now, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said publicly that Israel is not planning for a permanent presence in Gaza, but the attendance of his ministers at that meeting seems to suggest at least some support of the discussion. Is he playing both sides there?
What the Prime Minister has also not done is start formal planning or formal conversations within his government about plans for the day after. And analysts have been telling me that's because there's a fear that once these conversations really start, there will be a huge break in his cabinet, because as we've seen in that report, there seems to be a lot of differences there. What the leaders of the settler movement have told me and told other media outlets as well is that Netanyahu's statements, because he said many things about Gaza, to them leave a gap of interpretation. So while he has said that he thinks that settlements are not realistic, or a return of settlements in Gaza are not realistic, he's also said on multiple occasions that Israel needs to maintain security control of the Strip, and at times he has said that the maintenance of that security needs to be indefinite. He has also rejected calls for a two-state solution and the return of the Palestinian Authority to the Gaza Strip as a governing body. And what that says to settlement leaders and right-wing members of his cabinet is that there's a room for interpretation. That's how they see it. And that's why they are organizing at the scale that we just saw in that report. And for me, what's been astonishing covering the story is how the movement for a call of resettlement has evolved just in the past couple of weeks. It was always there since the disengagement in 2005, since Israel pulled out, but how far it's made it into the mainstream political spectrum with ministers even outside, even within the Prime Minister's party has been astonishing. In November, there was a small conference in the south of Israel with a couple of fringe figures from the Knesset. There have been more meetings since. And then from November till this weekend, where we've seen that huge conference, we've seen ministers from the Likud, at least more than 10 government ministers attend and endorse these plans. And that's very alarming, the pace of this movement and how it has sort of imposed itself on public discourse, and the Prime Minister has left a huge vacuum as to what his exact plans are.
Now, legality and government support aside, is there a chance that settlers could also take matters into their own hands?
I think we have to look at how the settlers have been acting in the occupied West Bank to get a little bit of an insight into how they see all of this. Now, the West Bank is occupied territory. It's been occupied by Israel since 1967. Consecutive Israeli governments, but especially this government, have supported the building of settlements, Jewish settlements there, which are considered illegal under international law, but are not illegal under Israeli law. Daniela Weiss and sort of that group that we've seen in that report, they have been also involved in establishing what are called outposts. Now, these are settlements that are even illegal under Israeli law, not just international law. And they have been successful in getting these outposts recognized and legalized by the government, a number of these outposts legalized and recognized by the government after the fact. And so again, going back to what I was saying earlier, what these settlers see, they see a gap, right? They see a possibility. If the Prime Minister is saying things like we will maintain security control, if he's not making definitive plans, that they maybe will get to do the same in the Gaza Strip. Another important thing to note is that Israel pulled out of Gaza in 2005 under what is called the disengagement law. The disengagement law included a pull out of Gaza, but also a pull out of some settlement communities in the northern West Bank. And what some lawmakers have been successful at doing earlier last year, in March 2003, is repeal part of the disengagement law that pertains to the West Bank. So these 4 or 5 settlements in the north of the West Bank, they've managed to get the disengagement law pertaining to them already repealed, and then have returned to them. And so there are also fears that now the legal avenue, the chipping away of the disengagement law has already started, and that they may continue to pursue repealing the disengagement law as it pertains to the Gaza Strip.
DW correspondent Aya Ibrahim in Jerusalem there. Thank you very much, Aya.